Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Vikram, and welcome to the session on technologies of the future. I hope you've had a good day at the festival all day today, and I work for the British High Commission in Delhi. Before I introduce the session, what I'd like to do is spend a few minutes on introducing to you what the India-UK technology partnership means and what has been the progress since the time it was announced. The India-UK technology partnership was announced in April this year by the two prime ministers when Prime Minister Modi visited the UK as part of the bilateral Anjogam visit. The India-UK partnership has been very central to the joint vision and prosperity of both the nations. We believe that it broadly serves four objectives. One, it will help us drive bilateral trade and investment. Two, help us collaborate in the area of research and innovation. Three, help us foster tech cluster partnerships. And four, and the most important one is learn and share from each other and draw on each other's strengths. Broadly, there were actually six initiatives that were announced. First one is the FutureTech Festival, which is something that we are celebrating today. This is an outcome of the India-UK technology partnership. And it is great to have all of you, all the thought leaders, all the investors from UK, India, and startups, entrepreneurs, and the government, people from the government. The second one was the Tech Alliance. I'll talk about this, the Tech Alliance second. This was facilitated by Department for International Trade, where we brought in NASSCOM and Tech UK together. It served mainly three objectives. One was, of course, to focus on skill development. Second was to focus on trade facilitation, and third on innovation. We've had the third meeting of the Tech Alliance yesterday, chaired by the president of NASSCOM, Debjani Ghosh, and of course the CEO of Tech UK, Julian David, and the members from both the sides. I think we had the most marvelous third meeting yesterday, and I'm quite enthused with what we discussed, and I think the future looks really bright here. The FinTech Rocket Ship Awards, this is interesting. Riding on the success of Tech Rocket Ship Awards, I'm sure many of you attended the reception at the High Commissioner's yesterday. We had the 6th edition finale of the Tech Rocket Ship Awards. We are taking one step forward, and we're now focusing on the FinTech ones. This is a very unique program because it focuses mainly on FinTech companies, and it gives a very, the focus is mainly around getting about 10 to 15 FinTech companies, and they are in actually, as we speak, they are at the festival here today, and getting them to experience the ecosystem in India, which includes also pitching to Indian investors. And likewise, the plan is that we will also shortlist about 10 Indian FinTech startups and take them to the UK and ensure that they have the same experience. Tech Hub, that's the other one. This was again announced in April this year. This is being set up with the help of Department for International Trade and DCMS, which is another UK government department, stands for Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sports. The idea is again to bring together high-tech companies both from India and the UK and try and get into some kind of a commercial partnership or arrangement. It could be a strategic tie-up or a joint venture. And ultimately, the focus is to drive the bilateral trade and investment between both the nations. AI healthcare pilot, I think that's interesting because this is being jointly anchored by Department for International Trade with Niti Aayog to support the Ayushman Bharat program of the Government of India. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to learn from the next generation of what we call UK, is basically learning from the UK's AI evidence-based healthcare technology and method and trying to replicate the same model in India, trying to strengthen the healthcare delivery at the district levels and at the government hospitals, mainly focusing on in the areas of eye care, cancer, and diabetes. And lastly, tech cluster partnerships. So this is, we've already had two partnerships so far. One is between Midlands Engine and State of Maharashtra. This is in the area of future mobility. And the second one is with State of Karnataka and Northern Powerhouse, focusing on artificial intelligence and data. I think the idea here is very clear. Try to bring together the strengths and centers of excellence from the UK and India together and create a good launching pad for Indian companies in the UK and UK companies in India. Just very quickly moving on, I just want to spend maybe a quick 2 minutes on this particular slide. This completely reflects the strength of the relationship. The fact is that India and UK already have a great relationship, and what we're doing today is going over and above that in terms of our initiative. 19.6 billion, these are the latest figures that have come out, very encouraging. 20% growth over last year. This is from 2017 to 2018. This has been, I think it's been the highest jump in percentage terms in the last 5 years, which is truly remarkable. And in absolute terms, I think the figure that got published was £8 billion. Some of the other stats are very, very encouraging as well. So India invests more in the UK than rest of the EU combined. And it has been the 4th largest investor for the last 5 years. And on the other hand, UK has been the largest G20 investor in India and the 3rd overall largest investor since 2010. These are some really interesting stats. Also, if you look at the other side, there are about 800 Indian companies operating in the UK, of which, so they employ about 110,000 people, of which 30,000 or about 33%, if I have the figure right, are being employed by Indian IT companies. And of course, London, as everyone knows, is actually the global home of financial capital. So Indian companies in the last few years have raised 2.2 billion in masala bonds. So this is basically not in pound sterling, but in rupees. Very quickly, the next slide, this defines our partnership. If you look at the growth that the IT industry has had in the last 2 or 3 decades, it's just been phenomenal. From 100 million in revenue to 167 billion in 2017 is truly remarkable. And no wonder it's not a surprise that, you know, the UK is the 2nd largest revenue generator for Indian IT companies through export revenues. Of course, also look at the contribution that Indian IT companies make to the GDP. The figures here are from 1998, but in 92, if I just compare to my top point here, it was less than 1% contribution to GDP. Now it is about 7.7%. So just imagine if the revenues drop, it does dramatically impact, or if it goes up, both ways impacts positively. Lastly, why is UK important, right, to the Indian IT companies? One, I think UK is the leading market for IT services and goods for Indian IT companies with a market of about 58 billion pounds. And in terms of procurement, it stands at about 36 billion. Also, some of the other statistics, I'm not sure if you can read it, but UK is ranked 4th on the Global Innovation Index above France, Germany, and Singapore. And in terms of doing business, it's ranked at 7th, again above France, Germany, and almost all of EU nations. I'm just going to pause here. I know Shivan is giving me a bad look, and so is Jim. So what I'll do is I'll quickly introduce the session. So one is, we feel very privileged that we have a really set of eminent panelists representing the who's who of the Indian IT fraternity, right? Through this discussion, I think one of the things, 2 things you should take away. One is, we keep talking about new technologies, we keep talking about digital technologies, and what does it really mean? And how these Indian IT companies use these technologies with ease to deliver value for their British customers. That's one. And 2, I think the second question that I'd like to also understand from all our panelists would be that, what has been their experience of doing business in the UK? Some of them have been in the UK for close to 50 years, and as early as about 1995. With that, and third question is going to be, I think the third one is, what about diversity in the technology world? That'll be interesting. I will now invite our panelists. As I take your name, please come and take your seats. Jim Bly, Director Corporate Affairs, TCS, and Jim has also been appointed the Chairman of CII in the UK now. Welcome, Jim. Secondly, I'd like to invite Anand Verma, CEO and founder of Brilliant Basics, as an Infosys company, the most stylish man on the panel today. Third, I'd like to invite Mr. Jagdish Mitra. I am sorry, he's been replaced by Mr. Sanjeev Nikor, President, Strategic Initiatives and Head of Marketing for Tech Mahindra. Vidya Srinivasan, Senior Vice President, Information Risk, Information Technology, Infrastructure, and mobility. Sorry, Vidya, you have a really long title. Of course, and then I'd like to invite my friend, Mr. Shivendra Singh, the hotshot guy at NASSCOM, Vice President and Head of Global Trade Development. And not the least, I'd like to invite Mark Slaughter, the Director General, Department for International Trade. And lastly, Ganapati Nathan, General Manager, Innovation and Intellectual Property from Wipro. Let me just start by first thanking all of you, right? I think we have an amazing panel today. Getting all our top companies together in one forum like this is just quite amazing. We did that way back in 2016. So thank you so much to all of you for coming in here today. And Vidya, I'm eternally grateful for you because, you being the only woman on the panel, and I was given a task to find one, and I'm glad that you were the first one to be invited and you were the first one to accept it. So thanks so much for that. The format of the session is going to be as follows. We'll ask our panelists to introduce themselves for 2 minutes. You could talk about yourself, you could talk about your company, you could talk about anything cool that you'd like the audience to know, post which we'll have a Q&A session followed by questions from the audience and a wrap-up. So I guess, Vidya, is it okay if we start from you?
Okay. I represent Genpact. Genpact is a large business process outsourcing. That was our origin, but now we are also focusing on transformation, consulting, as well as digital. But because digital has so many nuances, for us, really working on digital when we support our customers in the work we do for them, which is largely in the back office space as well as problem solving. So our clients our work is largely B2B. So we really deal with I would say the top 1,000 companies across the world in different domains. And actually, we are a point of convergence for a lot of people when it comes to knowledge, because we support about 5 large verticals within the business. So that's about us. I've been with the company doing multiple roles for the last 19 years. And so pretty much I've seen this company when we were 300 people to 75,000 across 18 countries today.
Well, greetings, everyone. It's a great honor to be here, not least because it's a little surprising to be included in a panel of technologists. So most people wouldn't really put me in that bucket, but I'll do my best. First of all, I represent the Department for International Trade of the United Kingdom, and I think the key element of that is that it's a department for international trade. And our department really has 3 main purposes. My main responsibility is inward investment, so to stimulate inward investment into the UK. My partner is responsible for exports from the UK. And once we leave the European Union, we'll be responsible for trade negotiations with basically all the countries of the world, probably except the European Union, which has a separate department. Now, you may have detected in my subtle tones an American accent, which is indeed accurate. So I'm born American, but I'm an adopted UK. In fact, in a way, I'm a representative as an immigrant to the UK in the 80s as a result of a wave of inward investment. And so in a way, my job is fairly fitting. My last comment is I love India. My wife was born here and grew up here, and I was married here, so I've already volunteered to the team to come here as much as they will have me. So thank you very much.
Shivendra here. First of all, thank you for being here. I think this is the graveyard shift, as they call it. So just your presence is great. Secondly, I've never been introduced as a hotshot guy, which is the first time. But anyway, thanks very much for that, Vikram. I hope it's positive. My role in NASSCOM, as you may have been in the previous panel as well, we had the term NASSCOM spoken a few times. So for people who don't know, NASSCOM is the Software and Services Association of India. I look after the global part of NASSCOM. We have about 2,500 plus members, representing about 95% of the industry revenue, which Vikram did show, about 167 billion US dollars. We are the IT association in India, not the Indian IT association, I always point out, because not only do we represent all the large and medium and small Indian companies, we also represent all the global companies which are based in India. My role is to look at the export part, which is the $126 billion part, and how do we grow that. UK is an important market, and I think today's discussion would be quite fruitful in terms of getting feedback from everyone. We focus on 3 or 4 domains. One is pillars, one is on innovation. You heard about AI and some of the new developments of new technology. That is a big focus area for us. How do we get through the AI policy? We work very closely with the government. So that is one part of it. The second part is on talent. You heard about the Future Skills program NASSCOM is doing. So that is how we are looking to upskill about 60% of the people, which Mr. Mohan Reddy pointed out, need to be upskilled. And we are working on that. We already have about 200,000 people signed up to that. And we are looking to go up to 2 million, which is what the government has asked us to do. And third, and not the least important, is growing markets. Over-dependence on US and UK, yes, about 80%. How do we expand to different markets and continue to grow in the existing markets? So that's the other aim and the objective that we have, and look forward to the discussions today.
So my name is Sanjeev. Hi, welcome to all of you, and I really appreciate you participating in this event. It's a very exciting event which has been put together by British High Commission, and a very unique event. When I was there yesterday in the awards show, Rocket Ship Awards as you call them, very fascinating to see the discussion going on between industry veterans and startup community, which kind of reminded me that, we were one of the original startups, and I'm a real byproduct of the Indian IT industry. And as Vikram was saying, it grew from 100 million in 92 to 167 billion now. So I started my career in 92 as a co-founder of Comnet, which was a networking startup, then taken over by HCL. And currently, of course, now I'm heading strategy and marketing at Tech Mahindra. Tech Mahindra, as you know, is a $5 billion IT services global company, which has expertise in applications, IT infrastructure, business process management, technology, engineering, and digital transformation. So we operate in UK for a long time. We started as Mahindra BT. We're part of the Mahindra Group, which is a $20 billion group in the country. All of you must be familiar. And so therefore, we owe a lot of our growth to what we've done in the UK market. And it's been a real fascinating journey. So we'll talk more about it. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody, and it's an honor to be here today. My name is Ganapati Nathan. As all good South Indians, my name is Nathan, and my surname is Ganapati, as I say. My father's name is Ganapati. I'm from Wipro. I don't think Wipro needs much of an introduction, but just for the record, I would say we are probably an $8 billion company, spread across the world, working across multiple industries and verticals, across infrastructure management, applications management, and business processes. I think as a representative of the Indian IT industry for a fairly long time, I think we have had a very good relationship and a very good experience in the UK. And we will talk about that, as Sanjeev was saying just now. My role in Wipro, I've been with Wipro for about 12 plus years now. I think it is one of the most interesting jobs in Wipro, at least that is my opinion. I work in what I call open innovation, which is to incubate alliances with startups for Wipro's solutions, for working with our customers' problems, for taking innovative solutions to the market, to see what's happening in the market and get an insight over there. And so this is a new thing that we started about 5 years, 6 years back, and it has been a tremendous experience learning from that. Along with that, we have also partnered with a number of academic institutions, with open innovation brokers who access experts for us and stuff like that. I also handle the IP or the patent portfolio for Wipro. As a services company, typically we did not have too much of a focus on patenting. But over the last 5 years, again, we started doing that, and today we have a fairly large portfolio of patents, about 2,100, 200, something like that, both filed and granted. Much of it has been grown organically, and that has also been something that I think we have done differently over the last few years. So with that, let me pass it on to Jim.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and apologies for those of you who saw me on a previous panel this afternoon. I might use some of the same examples, but I will try and use different ones. I also hope we can keep each other awake and keep you awake in the audience this afternoon as well, given we are at the end of the day. I'm Jim Bly, I'm Corporate Affairs Director at TCS in the UK and Ireland. TCS, most of you will know, we're a 423,000 person business based in Mumbai. It's TCS's 50th birthday year this year, and this year we also celebrated reaching a $100 billion market cap. We're a $20 billion revenue business, and in the UK that's 2.3 billion. So UK is our second largest market after the United States. We employ 17,000 people all around the UK. Previously and in the past, I think we've been known for BPO and that kind of thing, and that's still very much what we do. But an increasing proportion of our revenue is coming from this cutting-edge future technology at the digital end, because our customers are increasingly demanding that we are helping them transform digitally and be at the cutting edge of the tech world. A little bit more about me: I'm chairman of the CII in the UK as of last week, as Vikram said. I'm also a fellow at the University of Oxford, looking at artificial intelligence and the future of work, and also data and digital ethics as well. And I might touch on some of that this afternoon.
Great. How do you beat that? So, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having us, Vikram, and the High Commission of India in India. My name is Anand Verma. I'm a new kid on the block. My company, Brilliant Basics, which is a design and innovation company, got acquired by Infosys 15 months ago. And now I wear two hats. One is to run Brilliant Basics and grow the company in Europe. And secondly, I run digital for Infosys in Europe as well. I'm really excited to be here because I'm a child of India-UK relationships. I grew up in Jamshedpur, Tata City, where my father worked for Tata Motors for 37 years, and now my brother works there. So some of the TCS relationship and Tata relationship is quite usual. But also, I left India when I was 19 to start something in the UK. And I'm proud to say that whatever we're talking about today, as a story of India and UK, I feel very close to it personally and also professionally. And I'll talk more about my experience of working in both India and also in the UK.
Thank you. So Jim, let me start with you. I've learned two things about TCS this morning. One is that every 8 minutes, there's a person who gets hired in TCS anywhere in the world, right? So that, I hope I'm correct on that one. The second thing I learned is that your workforce comprises 81% of male in the UK. I'm sure a lot of people in the High Commission may not be happy about those stats. But anyway, my question is not on that. And two congratulations, one on your 100 billion, and second on 50 years, and one personal on your chairmanship of CII. Well done on that. So, I mean, my question is around data analytics and IoT. We keep talking about these new technologies. And what I learned very recently about what you do for Rolls-Royce in the UK. I'm sure the audience would love to know the very interesting work and how you're driving efficiencies for Rolls-Royce. I think it'll be good to get some news on that.
Sure. Thank you very much, Vikram. The Rolls-Royce partnership is a really big one for us, a very significant one for us, and also very interesting technically. What we're doing is working with them to reduce the downtime that aeroplanes have. So if you're flying from Delhi to London and there happens to be a problem on the plane with the engine, then the plane might have to stop midway through the flight, or it might have to land in London and then spend a bit of time out of action, causing knock-on impacts all around the supply chain and all across airports and so on. What we're doing is we're installing thousands of sensors inside the engines themselves and building a digital replica, what we call a digital twin of the engine. So as the engine is in flight, you can look at what might be going on with it, whether there are any performance issues, what might need to be fixed at the other end. So it reduces that downtime, but also enables Rolls-Royce to offer other services to its customers as well. What that does is significantly increase their ability to drive new revenue streams. It also significantly increases their ability to keep engines in the air for longer, which is, after all, what they exist to do. What it represents for TCS is a new partnership in new technology areas at very significant scale. This was a multiple hundreds of millions of pounds contract for over many, many years. And we're very, very proud to have won it, building on our existing long-standing relationship with them. So that's one element of kind of how we're taking forward that partnership model, very much in co-creation mode. So it was built between us and Rolls-Royce, and we're still working on the details and trying to get that absolutely right. And it's not the only thing that we do that is at that cutting edge. We're seeing increasing demand for artificial intelligence based on machine learning, but actually also going slightly further than that as well. We're hearing from customers about increasing demand for artificial general intelligence, which is kind of the next step, I think, here. We're looking at quantum computing for cybersecurity. We're looking at industrial robots, but also robots for consumer application as well. We're looking at driverless vehicles, and we're looking at autonomous modes of transport all over the transport industry. Effectively, what we're doing is trying to drive businesses who we work with to be not just digitally transformed, but to really be that one step ahead of both the competition, but also of the technologies that are being developed and being right at the front of it. Now, historically, I think the Indian IT industry wasn't viewed as being the provider of that kind of innovation, and you might go to the States or you might go to the UK or somewhere else to get that. That's absolutely wrong nowadays. And I did a tweet earlier this week looking at all the shenanigans that's happening in Westminster and all of the Brexit farce that we're seeing in London, and said actually none of that matters, because the future is here. The future is happening in India, but it's also happening in between the UK and India in driving innovation and developing new technologies and products for industrial use and commercial use in a way that we just haven't seen before. So we're really excited about this kind of project and really excited about the developments of what we can do with this technology going forward. What I would say is that the UK is a great place to do business if you're an Indian company. India is obviously a great place to do business if you're a British company as well, but I'll focus on the Indian companies in the UK for this part. There's a wealth of talent. There are great universities. There are great skills levels all across the country. There are good places with connections to the city and financial services, with connections to the great manufacturing industries that we have. And you only need to look at the Tata Group's investment to see some of the range of business activity that happens in the UK. We run everything from Techni Tea to Jaguar Land Rover to chemicals and salt and communications and the full range, which you can see outside at the Tata booth on the lawn. But that I think gives a sense of the strength of the market for an Indian investor. We are, TCS in its own right, one of the very biggest foreign direct investors in the UK, and Tata Group taken together is the single biggest investor in the UK. The rewards for us are very significant, and we see it as despite whatever's happening in Westminster, we see the fundamentals of the economy as being very sound and a very good place for technology businesses and other companies to invest. Vikram, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. Let me come to you, Vidya. Genpact, 2 years when we spoke, you were driving a lot of digital transformation through lean digital. That was your mantra at that time. And now you've moved to driving digital transformation through artificial intelligence. That's the other one. Before my question, right, of course, I also want to congratulate you that you've had a new acquisition that got recently announced. So well done on that. You're adding about 300 jobs in Manchester and Cardiff. So that's really great to hear. So my question is that why this shift, and then how is artificial intelligence better than your lean? Because I remember very clearly that all of you were extremely passionate about lean digital, right? And maybe one is this artificial intelligence. And the second one is, and also talk about some bit of stuff that you're doing through pharmacovigilance. I think that'll be very interesting.
Yes, so actually it is not different. Lean Digital really was, our legacy was as a Six Sigma company and a lot of focus on lean. But then as we moved more and more towards implanting digital, we just said take the digital piece and sort of execute it in a lean way, which is really nimble, which is opportunistic digital, which is take processes where there are problems, where the process is broken, and how do you introduce digital technologies into it and make them efficient or more predictable. In the continuum, one of the pieces is artificial intelligence, and it's got a bunch of other things, and I don't want to there's dynamic workflow. And so it's really making it simple for the users, because the kind of work that we do for people could be, in finance and accounting, where we're closing books. It could be in payables, it could be in pharmacovigilance, it could be in wealth management. How do you make inject that digital part of it into it? Either to drive consolidation of very broken processes, because if you look at most of our customers with very long histories, they're very complex landscapes. They've got multiple platforms and workflow, and it's a nightmare to integrate it. And so instead of telling someone, buy one more ERP, how do you put that overlay and still sort of make it easy for them to get the results? So that's broadly the whole idea on Lean Digital. And the piece on AI is really, once you make that change, how does the system learn for itself? So that you don't constantly need a technical guru to come and help you. So that's where it is. And there's obviously a lot of it linked to natural language processing, because that's one big piece. With this amount of data that you have, how do you make it relevant? So those are really the nuances that we have. On pharmacovigilance, and it is for one of the pharma companies of UK, it was actually in the area of clinical trials. And obviously, with the regulators and the regulatory focus, the number or the volume of trials obviously is increasing, and the reporting requirements are increasing. And and you have this, one of the big pieces in trials is, making sure that you have the right documentation for any, it's a technical, adverse effect. So when a trial is happening, if there is any byproduct of it that can potentially impact the person on whom the trials are being conducted, and it's very heavily regulated, and it is something where if something gets reported, to be sure that you are calling it out as a real problem and then fixing it, or actually calling it out as for want of a better word, as a false positive. It was a highly broken manual process, and what it meant was, the big piece for pharma companies is when you have a new product, and really, breakthroughs come far and few. I mean, so much of money goes into research, and then the breakthrough comes. As how is your go-to market? How do you monetize your go-to market? In a way, not just for financials, but really in a way because you are solving some fairly complex health, related issues. And with a broken, clinical trials process on adverse effects, it actually slows it down, because there's a lot of manual back and forth, and how do you report it? And that's where we have a proprietary platform. We call it Cora. It has artificial intelligence as well as natural language built into it. That really picked all of those trials and actually automated a bunch of it. So now you no longer needed people to be tabulating and giving information and saying, is this positive, or is this really a false positive, and then taking the action, because you have to go back and document saying there was a side effect, how you fixed it, because till you don't convince the regulator that your product is, I'm using a technical term, but is bug free, and that is not going to have any adverse impact, it is not going to make the cut to go into the market. So that's one big piece, and I think we sort of automated almost 50% of that process and took the accuracy up to almost 90%, which is 90 to 100%. And in terms of just time and value that it delivered to go to market, it was huge.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anand, let me come to you. I like the phrase "new kid on the block." You dress up like that as well, so that's a good thing, right? So when I met you in Shoreditch last time, and you invited me to Shoreditch last month, for a minute you scared me that you were running your operation out of Shoreditch, right? Because I was coming there after almost a gap of 5 years, and I'd forgotten how the place looked like. But thanks for inviting me there and hosting me at Dishum. That was a nice restaurant. So now you have, you're an Infosys company, and you seem to be doing a lot of work around artificial intelligence as far as onboarding of employees are concerned, and you believe that there is a big market potential out there.
Yeah.
So let's hear what you're actually doing here.
Sure. So Shoreditch nowadays, you don't get mugged when you come in the evening because it's a really kind of Silicon Valley of London. And almost every company is kind of investing in there to attract the talent for future. So the way we think about our business is kind of three areas get connected, right? The technology, the business domain, and the experience. And we are seeing that across the board, and some of the previous speakers talked about that as well. And you know, AI is fantastic, but our belief is AI without UI it can take even 10 steps further and create more impact. And one of the examples that I want to cite is BP. We're working with BP right now, and what they want to do is redefine the future of work. Now, one of the key areas on the wall here is future work. So what's happening is the future of work is changing dramatically, right? Today, the employees have far more power to change an organization than what it used to be. Because they are the same consumers of technology. They're outside with Google Assistant and what have you. They want to bring that into the organizations as well. And BP has a big agenda to hire amazing people, the same talent that we are tapping into. They also want to hire. So they gave us a challenge to redefine the employee experience in terms of from hiring to retiring processes. And we looked at every aspect of that journey, from onboarding to learning to rewards to you name it, and many other areas. And we looked at what can we do from an onboarding perspective to make the whole experience quite seamless. And we looked at areas that are repetitive, areas that can be automated, and how automation, which is different to AI, and AI can be used to make their onboarding experience faster, easier, cheaper, and efficient. Because if the onboarding is done really well for employees, they tend to stay in the company for 3+ or so years. So there was a clear business case attached to that. So we looked at a number of processes, like Vidya was saying in terms of Genpact example, but we also looked at how do you use things like voice, right? So we came up with this concept called breaking out of the browser. So it's, you know, because if you go to employees today, they will say, hey, intranet has everything, go and find stuff there. But end of the day, our experience is, as the consumers is, you know, Alexa or Google Assistant, a number of areas can be used as well. So for example, if you want to do, hey, who is my buddy in the company? You can just ask that question from the mobile phone, and that mobile phone allows you to give it the answer really quickly rather than waiting to find who your buddy is in large organizations who's hiring a lot of people. So we used AI, and we created an experience and a tone that was very friendly, right? And the idea was that the more and more the user or the employee uses AI, an experience, the more data we get from them and the more value is created. And as the journey goes further, we start to predict what their needs are going to be, right? And that's the power of natural language processing and machine learning. And we have turned that into a massive opportunity for BP from a graduate hiring perspective. And now they're rolling this out across all the employee onboarding, right? So that's an example I'm really proud of because it's very pertinent in the large company to redefine future work, but also at the same time, apply the technology not just for your end customers, for the employees who are working with you day in, day out. So hopefully that helps Vikram with bring it to life.
Yeah. So let me come to you, Sanjeev. Tech Mahindra was born out of a joint venture with British Telecom. So you've been in existence for 32, I mean, your relationship with BT has been a 32-year-old relationship, right? So that's a great one, going strong, well done on that. And the good thing is that you continue to grow steadily in the UK, which also happens to be your second largest market. And interestingly, you made some very significant acquisitions in the last 2 years, investing almost 250 million. I mean, I'm picking it up from, it's available in public domain. Target and bio agency. So Target, of course, focuses a lot on, this is a new, I've heard of, you know, software as a service, but I've never heard of a business process as a service. So that's a new thing. You've actually, a new platform you've acquired into your global offering. And the second one is bio agency, which is a digital transformation platform. I think it'll be good to hear from you on how are you sort of, you know, one, what are you doing with these companies now? I know you're expanding. what are the kind of technologies you're using here, and how does it sort of amplify your overall global offering?
Thanks, Vikram. So actually, you hit the nail on the head. Basically, what we've done is we have brought together several companies to address problems of operational performance in the industry. So our focus has been how to optimize operations for different industries. Okay, you rightly said we started with BT, and for example, for BT we do a number of things. I mean, we do DevOps, we do migration to cloud, we do management of their website, which is one of the biggest in the world. We have also set up an innovation center at Adstral, which is co-located with BT Labs, and we are now working on AI and machine learning to create new experiences for customers, in the 5G world. So we've taken several steps in the telecom industry, okay? And we are very well known for the telecom industry. So we work with Vodafone, we work for 3UK, we work for almost every telco in UK. But we wanted to actually incubate a new industry. And we picked up the financial services industry. And that's where we acquired this BPO platform. I mean, it was really a business process management platform, which was a fairly domain-rich platform. But I would say what we did was that we got Bio, which is a digital change agent, which we acquired again simultaneously, to modernize this platform. So how did we do that? I mean, this platform basically is an administration platform, is a customer servicing platform for savings, loans, mortgages, etc. And it caters to roughly 50 financial clients, big names like RBS, Yorkshire Building Society, Santander Bank, Credit Suisse, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley in the UK. And so what we did was we added 2 or 3 technology pieces to it. The first thing we did was map the customer journey digitally, okay? And so therefore we added the whole application, into the application we added the AI piece, we added the cognitive piece, we added the robotic process automation piece, and then we added the analytics and big data piece. So what we found was that there was a lot of data being generated, but it was not being aligned to the business process, and it was not being made available to the provider. So we added that piece. Third thing is that we converted this whole platform to a subscription platform. So today there is a cloud version of this platform available, and that has added a further life to the platform. So we've now scaled up to the platform to service directly about 15 billion pounds of assets directly, and 24 billion pounds indirectly. We have more than 18 million accounts that we are servicing. More than 25 to 30% improvement in performance through automation and AI. So that's what we've done. We made this platform a scalable platform by bringing in the digital change and digital transformation, by focusing on customer experience. And I think that is a real success story that I can sort of recount. So it's a question of focus, adding digital to traditional. So what we are saying is, it's not by digital alone that you can achieve things, but when you look at an industry and then digitalize it, that's when you actually achieve scale. And that's a problem many of the startups are facing. So what we are saying is add operational technology to information technology, and that's when you get magic. Thanks.
Great. Let me come to you, Nathan. Wipro has had a good run in the last so many years. You've been in the UK since '95, if I've got it right. And in the last 3 years specifically, I think the Wipro digital business has been fueling your growth in the UK and across Europe. I think one question that you'll help me answer for myself is, one, I don't understand the term digital because it has so many interpretations, right? That's one. My question is that, so what exactly are you doing in digital now in the UK? And also, are there any specific technologies that you're using across specific customers, or is it just, because I know you have a very design approach, bottoms-up approach, very customer-focused. So what is the approach and what sort of technologies? Is it a blanket approach, or are you using, like they say, different folks need different strokes, that kind of a method? Let's get to hear from you on that one, please.
Okay, thank you. So I think what I can try or attempt is to sort of bring all the threads of this conversation here so far together. When we look back and try to understand what digital is, and digital, like innovation and these kind of terms can have very many different meanings for very many different people and in different contexts, etc., as you may well be aware. But for me, when I think about digital, this is what comes to mind. I think there are about 5 or 6 things which one would like to talk about. What is a digital experience? One would be in terms of the ability to use multiple kinds of interactions, right, which people can have. So today, obviously, you have all these kinds of augmented reality, human-machine interface methodology or methods are being developed, and so obviously, digital technology would mean that you would use that. A second aspect of that would be in terms of automation. We talked about robotic process automation. There is talk of automation using AI technologies and so on and so forth. But I think there is an element of automation that is also there. There is this element of using analytics, right? With all the big data stuff that people talk about, there is this element of how you use analytics, what are the best practices, and how do you use data in a way that it really gives you real insights which you were not able to get up until now. The fourth is the use of all these applied AI technologies, so to say, machine learning, neural networks, reinforcement learning, that kind of stuff. Whether it is computer vision or and in terms of applying all of those things for pattern matching, anomaly detection, and so on and so forth. Right, so there is this whole kind of thing that is opened up because of the availability of high-performance machines. On which you can use all of these things, and that has really led to this growth that we have, explosion of growth that we have seen recently. Then there is this piece about this, what I loosely call infrastructure, but it's not really infra. That's not probably a good definition, but it could be in terms of things like the cloud, where you could use it as a SaaS application. You could run hybrid sort of deployments. So there is this whole cloud piece, which is really allowed a lot of innovation to flower in terms of using digital technologies, because it's now not necessary to invest a huge amount individually into hardware and stuff like that. There is mobility, of course, and the fact that with 3G, 4G, 5G, things are improving tremendously in terms of the way in which people can use the information and access the information at the time that they want it in ways. So for example, the processing power along with mobility would make something like a maps available very easily, right, in very, very timely manner. But so with all of those things, there is again another very important thing, which is the whole aspect of design. People have talked about user-centric design all through all the different panelists have spoken, even in the previous panel. I think there were some references to that. And design is really about user journeys or process journeys, how users actually experience an application, interact with the systems that they are working on. But it is also about how easily you can collaborate, how easily you can work across silos, how easily you can break boundaries, and whether that can happen. It is also about how even technology is viewed, from the fact that technology is a tool. People talk about that, but really today technology is both a driver of change, of customer expectations, of customer behavior, and it is also the system by which this is actually implemented, or this is actually happens on the ground. And so technology is proving to be a much bigger role, and it's not that business can outsource something to technology. It is something that IT as well as business have to work very closely together. And finally, it is also about doing it in some sort of real time. In real time, I've been working for a long time now, but every time you talk about agility and ability to adapt further, I think this has been a constant throughout the IT journey. But I think we are riding on an exponential curve, and the fact that when you talk about agility or real time, the meaning becomes that much more potent right now, because we know you have to do it faster now. And so all of these 5 or 6 things that I mentioned here together if you are able to sort of bring it together into an implementation or into an engagement or into a transformation journey, then I think you've got a digital experience that you can drive. So it's a very design-oriented or a design underpinned sort of a process where you bring in a whole host of digital technologies in a way that makes finally a very, very seamless and a very natural interaction for the customer or for a natural experience for the customer. And so while these are constant, obviously, in terms of what we try to do with digital, and in fact, the example I would like to give is that of Lloyds, the largest bank or so in the UK, where we have undertaken a huge digital sort of transformation and a huge effort to reimagine how the processes would be across multiple business units, across multiple user processes. And the entire process and the entire operations have been reimagined in a way that it has unlocked, I think, based on a certain calculation that was done by the bank, about £1 billion of value. There has obviously been cost reductions. I think over the last 3 years, we have seen increasing cost reductions. I think this year we're expecting something like a 30% reduction in the overall costs of the IT infrastructure, which is huge when you compare the size of operations that the bank has. It has also enabled, more than 60% of the operations of the bank are now on some sort of a digital basis. There has been a number of processes that have been revisited and have been reconfigured and reimagined. And so that's really something that has been a huge success. There has been, this whole digital experience has been very good for us. Digital today drives about 30% of our revenues overall. In the UK, it's slightly higher. And so we feel that a design-centric approach that drives the reimagining of business processes in a way that makes sense to the final user experience, which brings in technologies as needed, where you actually work with coherent teams of people. So you have to bring in an interdisciplinary team of creative people, of technology people, of business people, of domain experts, and then try to imagine this whole thing and then try and implement it in a timely and in a cost-effective manner. I think there is a huge potential for this thing. And all this is happening because of the power of these technologies that today are fundamentally available to us to reimagine all of these things. So, along with Holmes, our artificial intelligence platform, which has a lot of RPA kind of stuff that is built into it, but it's also got a whole bunch of other stuff that is also there. I think today, we are using all of these technologies in a way across multiple customers, but especially in the UK, to drive a lot of business to us. I hope that answered.
No, it's like a good education for me at least. Yeah. Coming to you, Mark. I hope you're enjoying your last 2 days, given the fact that you just got in yesterday morning. And I'm also conscious of the fact that you are the Director General of Investment Worldwide, and I'm part of your extended team, so I'm going to be asking you a fairly simple question. So how do you ensure in your current job that you took over in the last 5 months that, okay, let me just step back and give you some statistics first. So if you look at the FDI landscape from India to the UK, right, more than 50% of that is contributed by IT companies. And I think I did mention that about 30,000 jobs are employed by the Indian IT companies. And I think of that 30,000, 80% of the jobs are probably fall under the people on the panel and the companies that they represent. And UK has always maintained its leadership on FDI across European Union. So how do you ensure, my question is, how do you ensure that UK continues to maintain its leadership on FDI from India?
Well, I guess first of all, it's worth saying it's not just me. So it's very important because we have an excellent team here. We have excellent teams in London and around the world. And if I think about the essence of what FDI is all about, it's about business. And as Vikram just mentioned, I've only been in the job a few months. I've been in business 30 plus years. And so taking a page from Jim's comments, in a way, we ensure that business gets on with investment and doing business when business doesn't spend so much time looking at day-to-day headlines, and instead actually spends time doing business and thinking about business in the long term. And if I think about the UK as a destination, in a way the story of all of the panelists really tells it much better than I can. It's really about the long-term fundamentals that the UK offers, and particularly as a place for research, innovation, and technology leadership. And if I think there is anything that one takes away from today, it is the emphasis of the important on those three things, the way they work together, and the importance of the fertile ground that the UK presents for people developing their businesses, both as startups and then as developed businesses growing both from the UK around the world, but also within the UK. And that kind of relates not only to simple things like language and time zone, but fundamentally to the rule of law, security of property rights, predictable ways of going through the courts and such during disputes. And I think if you look, for example, at the ease of doing business rankings that have been put out by the World Bank and Ernst & Young, you'll see that the UK ranks very highly in those things. And in a way, one of my jobs is to continue to focus government across Whitehall and making sure that the various factors that go into doing business easily are continued to be maintained. As I said, this department that I represent is existing for business and to develop business. So it's very much an effort of continuation and development of that that is our focus. So the good news is that we have a well-established, fertile environment. We have a great team, and all we have to do really is keep doing in the long run what we have done in the past and not get too distracted by day-to-day headlines.
Sure, thanks. So basically you're telling us that we continue doing our jobs that we have been doing for so long now. All right, passing the buck back to us. Sorry we had to keep you waiting, and I did mean that compliment. It's up to you whether you liked it or not. So the question to you is, we have been working with you for some time now, almost 2 years, and I must thank you, and on behalf of Mark as well, because you have really anchored the relationship between Department for International Trade and NASSCOM. And you've been a big promoter of the UK, given the fact that number of engagements that we've had. So in the last 18 months, you've actually stepped up your engagement with us and overall with the UK government. So my question really is that, one, what has caused this sudden, I wouldn't say change of heart, but sudden tilt towards the UK, I mean, which was, I'm sure it was quite latent earlier. And also it would be good to understand what sort of engagements you've done. I think it'll be good to, from a NASSCOM perspective.
Thanks, Vikram. Just wanted to, pick on a few points which some of the other panelists mentioned. Mark, I think, get on with work as usual. That's one. I picked on a few of your statistics, Vikram, which talked about how India is probably the largest investor and much more than EU combined. Yes. And out of that, the technology sector is the largest investor. And I'm so glad to see that the non-DIT members are all our members. So that's another point I wanted. I was very glad to see that, and I'm including Anand in that as well. So those are a few things. But coming to how things have progressed, obviously a big thank you to DIT as well. NASSCOM considers the UK government and DIT as an integral partner, and because if we work together, we can create a win-win scenario. Because the technology sector, as we've discussed, is the linchpin to the investments into the UK. And if we look at some of the numbers that we're talking about, the projection of the industry growing from about $167 billion to nearly $300 billion by 2025, and the UK being $25 billion, we would love to see it grow to $50 billion by 2025. So we'd love to see that double. So for that, obviously, we need to work together. We need to ensure that on a policy-wide basis, things are stable, which means companies like stability, and that's very important. The other is, how do we encourage a larger number of companies from India to look at the market opportunities in the UK and create that ecosystem for that as well. So I think that's very, very critical. But I just wanted to come back to the disruptive times that we are here in. And I think it's important to see everything in that perspective. Because politically, we are seeing that although there is huge move towards globalization, we are also seeing a move on protectionism. So look at the US and China trade wars, for example. Those are going to have global ramifications. So we need to keep an eye on that. But more closely, we heard a number of our speakers talk about AI, data, NLP, and a number of other areas, machine learning and some of the other things. All these are bringing disruption in a very, very big way, because the amount of data churning which is now happening means that the existing business models are no longer going to be working. So that means the entire piece of new technologies, whether it's AI, robotics, machine learning across the board, and blockchain, is going to drive a lot of these growth. So just to give you one statistic of Microsoft and IDC, which says that the GDP of India in terms of this new technologies would be about $154 billion just by this new technology by 2021. And mind you, the entire industry revenue is $167 billion. So that's a number to look out for. So, that's the kind of change we are going to anticipate. And, all the examples which all our companies gave, our panelists gave, were all on new technologies, if you notice that. So that's the mantra, which means partnership is going to be key. You heard about co-creation. That's going to be key as we move forward. And one of the big, areas of focus, which you would have seen mentioned across the various panels, is talent. Because we can talk about the $300 billion growth, we can talk about the growth in digital transformation, but that will not happen, and there can be a supply-side bottleneck if you don't have the talent for that. And if 60% of the people have to be upskilled, that's going to be a big one. And whichever country moves ahead with full steam, they are going to have a competitive advantage. We in India are, and at NASSCOM, are focused on a future skills program, which is there. So there are two ways that we would love to work with the UK, and we are working with them. One is how do we upskill the current workforce? So, how do we look at future skills that we have as a platform which has 9 emerging technology areas, about 70 job roles, and 155 skill sets, where we provide all the content through various content providers, not a NASSCOM content, as well as you have subject matter experts, and it's an online platform, so from early learning to deep learning as well. So that is something we'd love to see, working together with the UK government, DCMS, to try and see how we can work to grow the local ecosystem in the UK. The other is a flexible immigration policy, which we are very, very glad to hear about Prime Minister Theresa May's comment on how she talked about high-skilled workers and the focus on that, and how high-skilled workers in the EU and non-EU would be treated at the same level. I think that's a very, very positive statement, because it's not where you are from, but it's what the skill set is all about. And I think that is going to be critical as we move forward. Coming to the last point, in terms of how we've grown, I think just in the last 6 to 8 months, there's been a tremendous progress, and we're extremely thankful to the British government on that. We formed the Indo-UK Tech Alliance with Tech UK, something which was institutionalized and supported by both the Prime Ministers when Prime Minister Modi went there in April. So this is an alliance to work on policy, innovation, and talent, and how we could work together on that. So that was one. We've hosted a number of ministers, Secretary of State for DCMS, those days Matt Hancock, DIT Minister Graham Stewart, and then we did a session with Minister for Science, Universities and Innovation in London, Sam Gima at that time. So that's something which is there. I also looked at some of your things that you presented, and we are partners in that. So we were partners in the Tech Rocket Ship Award. We are partners in the Tech Hub with you as well. And obviously we are close partners in the FutureTech Festival. That clearly shows the emphasis that we as an industry and as companies have put in, partnership with DIT, and we are wanting to work together to create a win-win scenario. So big thank you to you and DIT for that.
Thank you, Shivent. And we will continue to look at you and NASSCOM to work together with us, because as I believe that together we can always achieve more. Just moving on, I think the one thing which is quite common amongst the investor panel is that all of you are actually growing in the UK, so which is it's a good thing, and we are happy to support that. So my question really is to the panel, and we'll start with you, Vidya, that in 2014 when we first met, your presence was fairly limited to London, basically because your sales, your access to Europe was there. Now today, I think we were discussing earlier, you have a presence now in Maidenhead, in Belfast, and you also have a presence in Manchester and Cardiff. So you've actually grown your footprint across the UK, which is really great and heartening to see. So what has been driving this growth, and what has been your experience doing business in the UK? I mean, of course, we know in terms of the World Bank ranking index in terms of doing business, UK features number 7. But it'll be good to hear from you that does the ranking 7th, does it really mean that you're having a great time? It'll be good to get that feedback.
So you sort of ignored Glasgow. I don't know why.
Sorry.
But I think you shouldn't politically incorrect. But yeah, we have a big presence in Glasgow as well. The growth, yeah, it is true that we started with the sales office largely, but have grown really to do some services out of UK. And I think that it's driven really by the kind of work, our own continuum of work. As you grow and as we start developing and delivering work which is more, which very tightly aligned to the parent company, where the skill sets are very contextual, or the skills actually are easily available there versus here. And I'm now talking of things like analytics, things like, and we do have an acquisition which is in the, which does trading in the market, which really is, does wealth management, so highly regulated, highly market driven. And then pharmacovigilance, we did acquire a company which does pharmacovigilance, and that's the Belfast story for us and Maidenhead. I think those have, so the early wave of BPM, which was, take a lot of the easier work and technology and transform and do it offshore, is obviously one part of the job. But as you go into delivering more complex services, I don't want to just necessarily call it high-end, but complex, because it is so tightly integrated with the upstream processes, or it is highly contextual. We have to grow what we call as nearshore, and that's where UK is important to us. And obviously a lot of this came through some acquisitions, because that's where we were funneling our energy so that we could sort of leapfrog into some of those spaces. And the reason for Pharmaco, I just want to say, we support about, if you take the 5 top brands of pharmaceutical companies, all of them are our clients. We do a lot of work for them in multiple spaces, and it was a logical growth saying, why don't you help? You do, we do work for them in finance and accounting, in marketing, in a bunch of other things. Why would we not logically go upstream, which is core to them, which is pharmacovigilance? And that's really where the conversation started. And now, obviously, with digital being a big one, our London office actually is not just sales, but it's digital and consulting both. Oh. In terms of, I think every time we have anything, even pre-bid or pre an acquisition, I think we've reached out to you. It's been a partnership, because we just feel that the data or the support we get from you is more credible. Because sometimes when you go to private players, there is a certain amount of bias that comes. So we've reached out to you for some big questions and some small ones. Big ones in some cases was really understanding the technology landscape or talent landscape. But it's also been about, in many cases, having the right set of openings and conversations. And I think that's been, that's really where we've seen a lot of value in the relationship.
Thank you for that feedback. I'm glad that we've been very happy to support your Glasgow expansion. I remember Dharmesh from your team had kept me awake till about 12 o'clock to set up your visit to Glasgow, so I can't forget that, and I'm surprised I forgot Glasgow on the roadmap. I think you bring in another interesting perspective on mergers and acquisitions. So Sanjeev, you've been growing a lot through mergers and acquisitions now. So what has your experience been? I know you have a 32-year-old relationship, but just walk us through some of the stuff that, what's working well for you in the UK.
So one of the first things is that, we have been able to build global businesses out of UK. So UK has a natural advantage, of course, in terms of the time and being at the center of the universe, literally. But I think the big advantage that we have seen out of UK is that whether it was the digital transformation business that we acquired, which is the Bio, or the financial services platform that I talked about, Target, all these platforms and businesses we have been able to take global. And we have taken Bio now to almost every part of the world, and we are scaling up that business big time. Whether it is US customers like Ford, or whether it is Australian customers like NAB, we are finding Bio very, very global in its outlook, and we are able to sort of realize our global dreams through investment in UK, which is a very big advantage. Similarly, with Target, we are able to now make it was a UK-centric platform. Now we are able to make it Europe-centric, and we are taking it to American companies, we are taking it to Australian companies, and we are finding that this is a very adaptable platform. So one of the big things we have noticed is that culturally, UK is very open. Culture is a big barrier of doing business globally. But I think UK provides that big edge in terms of having a very open culture. It has a very good ecosystem of innovation and partnerships, a great academia, a fantastic legal framework. So I think, those are some of the big advantages that it offers us. And those are the kind of advantages that we are leveraging, and hence we have made significant investments in UK, and so far it's been a phenomenal journey. And thanks, Vikram, for all the support that you and your team have given to us.
You're welcome, always. Let me get in Jim now. I mean, you have 17,000 employees in the UK. I have actually lost track of the number of centers you have in the UK, whether it's the innovation ones or the delivery centers or the design centers. Yeah, I mean, it's quite a lot. So what has been your experience? I mean, and you've had a great journey, TCS. You've been in the UK now for 45 years, over 45 years. And of course, you've also got the biggest P&L across. I know you don't consider others competition being TCS, but it'll be good to understand how your experience has been, and you continue to still grow, so that's a good thing.
One of the weirdest things I've done at Tata since joining was lead the group's Parsi ceremony at Jamsetji Tata's grave, which, believe it or not, is in Brookwood Cemetery in Surrey, and it's quite amazing. There are a few of the original kind of Tata founders who are buried there, and if you're ever in Surrey, in the countryside, then go and have a look. But what it reminded me of is the fact that this group of companies is 150 years old this year, and the heritage of the company is intrinsically linked to the UK. It was there that the original Tata kind of generation learned lots of the tips and techniques of industrialization that could spread to, introducing the first hydroelectric, dams and power plants in Mumbai, for instance. It was there that TCS 45 years ago established its first overseas office. And I think that the journey has been from being relatively small and being obviously brand new, but then growing pretty slowly over kind of 35 years or so. But the real acceleration has been in the last 10 years. And a lot of that, and particularly a lot of the headcount growth, has been because we and our customers are driving localization as much as we can. Our customers want to be served by people who are operating in the country as well as people who are operating in other countries to support that as well. And we've responded to that. So one of our very big public sector customers wanted us to have several hundred employees based here when a choice could have been made to have those employees somewhere else. By here, sorry, I meant the UK. And that's why we now employ several hundred people up in Liverpool. Similarly, one of our power customers wanted us to have our employees based in Warrington, and that's why we've got 700 people based in Warrington. And a lot of that has been driven because of the relationships and the partnerships that we've had. We're also very grateful always, I don't want to turn this into a love-in for UKTI and DIT, but we are always grateful for the support of DIT in making sure that we are kind of well connected. We've all spoken very positively about the UK as an investment destination, and that's absolutely right, and I agree with everything that my colleagues here have said. I would raise two areas of concern for the UK where we'd like more support from the government. First and foremost is about talent, and Shivendra mentioned this. We see in the UK a 40,000 person annual shortfall in STEM qualified graduates, and that causes huge difficulties for us when we're trying to be one of the biggest graduate recruiters in the country, but we just don't have enough applicants at the right skill levels. So that's the first issue. We need government to help us on digital skills and to encourage people from the youngest possible age to learn those skills at school and at college and at university, so they consider us as the destination place for a career, just as is the case in India. And the second issue, and I really hope we can get on to talk about diversity because I've got some strong views on this profoundly important issue, but the second issue is about diversity, and I think the government but also the sector need to work very significantly harder to try and make sure that we are, in India we have 50-50 male-female graduate intake. In the UK it's nowhere near that. We must rectify that scenario. We can do better, and we must do better with the support of the government and the rest of the industry.
All right, the buck is back, I guess. At us again, okay. Anna, let me get you in. So, Infosys, 1995, you started your journey. I know you've been with them for the last almost 2 years. There's been a bit of a silent period with Infosys in the last, I think, prior to 2 years, right?
Rightly so.
Yes, we won't get into that. When can we expect the US model to be replicated in the UK? I know you've just taken the first step there, probably 2 steps ahead now.
Yeah.
When can we have a model like that for the UK now?
Yeah, so it's already happening, right? So, Salil has come on board and he's been very acquisitory already. So we made 3 acquisitions. Brilliant Basics was the first one. We made an acquisition in the US and then recently in the Nordics as well, a company called Fluido. I think, just to kind of pick up some points, what's changing in the UK and other countries as well, the ways of working is dramatically changing from a client perspective. They do not want to just send a brief, offshore and expect magic to happen. They want the brief to be almost like a startup, close to them, solving their problems using design thinking and all the things that we've been talking about. And once that is settled, then they want to start exploring onshore, offshore, nearshore kind of model, right? So, because they are under the same pressure as we are as colleagues and organizations, that's one thing. The second thing that's changing is the role of design is evolved dramatically, right? So we're looking at a massive opportunity whereby classic design, which is just make my thing look good, to all the way to computational design, which is make it function for billions and millions of people, which means that you've got to understand the business context, the design context, and the technology context from day one, not towards the end of the project, right? The third thing is the localization, right? So if you go to a Lloyd's Bank or Nationwide, they're announcing their own business to be digitally transformed. Some they will do it by themselves, others will happen through our partnership, right? So these are 3 factors we're seeing. So which means that, for a UK-born startup like us, we started in 2012, we got acquired in 2016. And it's basically Infosys-like companies are acquiring us not as a fashionable statement, but using us as a stepping stone into organically grow our service lines, our value propositions in the UK. That's one thing that's happening. The second thing that's happening, which I'm really excited about, is everything that we're doing in the UK, how do you bring it to India, right? So we are training 250, 300 designers in India who will be design thinking trained. They will understand not just creativity, but also problem-solving skills, and they'll be close to technologists working the same way we're trying to work with the clients locally in front of our clients. So for me, I think, you'll see more from Infosys from an acquisition perspective, but you also see a massive acceleration as well. So I'll give another example to you guys. We have we've grown by 200% in just last 6 months. And we have just taken a massive space in Shoreditch, and we are going to hire even more people, not just from the availability of talent in the market right now through hiring, but also working with universities, academia, schools. And we have done something like that with RISD. RISD is Rhode Island School of Design, We're doing the same thing with School of Arts, University of East Anglia, second and third tier universities and schools. That's where the talents are completely untapped. And with the proper training, be it 6 months, a year, 2 years, I think we can create talent that doesn't exist out there. And that could only happen by working with the government, DIT, and also ensuring that acquisition like BB can fuel that kind of talent creation rather than tapping into the same pool that everybody else is tapping into.
Sure, that's a good one. So, Nathan, the last time I knew you have about 10 centers in the UK, right? And the last one we inaugurated was in Edinburgh, the Wipro Digital one. How has your experience been? I mean, without taking too much time, sorry, I'm just conscious of time. 2 minutes max, please.
Sure. So as I said, we have had a good time in the UK over the last close to 25 years, 23 years. We've been there, and we are bullish about the UK, Brexit or not. And so I think, yes, we have about 10 development centers, all the way from, I think, Inverness in the north to Horsham in the south, if I've got my geography right. Yes. And I think there is a lot of investment that Wipro is doing. In the UK, we are working to develop, you were talking about the STEM talent. So we are working both in terms of working with some tier 2 universities to build up those kind of apprenticeship programs, etc., so that the people can come and work here. I think over the last 2 years, there have been about 65 or maybe close to 100 people who have been joining us, who are already, after training, sitting in front of customers and doing work. But on the other hand, we are also working to develop the teaching skills of people, of faculty in these universities. And so Asim Premji Foundation here in India does a lot of work on education, on building up the infrastructure of education to help teachers develop better pedagogies and methodologies and things like that. And so in similar manner, I think there is work that is going on. There is work that we are doing with the London Stock Exchange. We are part of their elite program. There is a talent hub that we have started in our Reading facility. So there's a lot of investment and a lot of work that is going on. Our design team, digital team has, you said opened up an office in Edinburgh, but also there's a second office that has been opened up in London itself, because we are growing there, as we mentioned ahead, in terms of digital. So with all of these things, and I think the kind of support that we are having from the government and the DIT and from you all, I think we think that there will be a lot of possible growth in the UK as we go forward. We also find that some of the things like, top coder and this whole thing about crowdsourcing, we want to work with that. The British customers are more open to models that allow us to crowdsource and work on our delivery costs and stuff like that. We want to work with the startup ecosystem in Britain. We've been fairly successful in some of our models that we are doing here, so we want to do that. So I think we have a lot of plans for the UK, and we hope to get it done with the kind of support that the government can provide us in terms of, making sure that the right talent is available at the right place at the right time.
Great. So Mark, I'll just come to you quickly. A quick 60 seconds on, what is the connection between FDI and new technologies?
Actually, we get declining amounts of time, I've noticed, as we go forward. But I'll even be briefer than 60 seconds.
Sorry about that.
I think it's all about technology. And I think the future economy of the UK is all about technology. And I think technology brings us an increasingly globalized world that works across borders. And in many respects, that's the purpose of our department, to help make that possible. So I think technology and FDI and a prosperous UK are all very intimately related.
Well, thank you for that. Shivin, so what lies ahead now? I mean, what else and what more can we do together? What do you think is your ask now, let's say, for the next 12 to 18 months from a NASSCOM perspective?
Thanks, Vikram. Few things. As you would have heard, I think the industry is bullish about the UK, because the focus is on digital transformation. The models are changing, which means good news in terms of, you're seeing that companies are looking at co-creation, companies are looking at getting domain expertise, companies are looking at new technologies. It could be an M&A, it could be various strategies in terms of working with startups on joint go-to-market strategies. It could be funding, it could help scaling up. So all of that is happening, which means that definitely more involvement with the local ecosystem of technology players is going to be far higher than what it has ever been before. So I think that's a very good news, number one. Number two is, we are very keen to look at a few outcomes, whether through and we had a meeting with the Tech Alliance meeting. One is, how could we see the rollout of future skills in the UK? That's one ask. The second is, how could we look at a high-skilled worker mobility agreement, which is there. I think this is being talked about for a long time. I use the term worker mobility because it's not migration. It does not impact net migration numbers because people, skilled people go and complete work and come back. So that's something which we are very keen to work on. We are also very keen to work on the innovation platform, what we term as tech alliances, where for a lot of our large companies, we were there in Slush, which is one of the largest startup events last week in Helsinki, and got them to connect with scale-up startups. I think that's going to be the mantra. And we've already heard Brilliant Basics is a great example here, in terms of specific niche areas. We'd also like enterprises from UK to come and, be exposed to the startup ecosystem here. And NASSCOM has a 10,000 startup program, and there are a lot of social impact schemes which the government is running on health tech, fintech, agri-tech, and edutech. So these are a few things that we would love to work on. And I see you looking at the watch, so I will stop here now. And I think that this is something which would like.
Sometimes I make a mistake by asking you what else can we do, right? And the laundry list keeps adding up. And I always hope that it's supposed to condense rather than going. But it's a good thing. But we have a lot of work to do. Thank you for that honest feedback, like always. I think we just have about 5 minutes for Q&A. If anyone has any questions from the audience, I see one hand going up already. So can someone please pass the microphone there? Please just mention your name and who's the question for.
Hi, this is Vinay Jaiswal, and the question is for Mark. A lot of euphoria and positivity around the digital transformation and new ICT technology around the ICT industry. My question is, what about the traditional industry? For example, I'm coming from a recycling lead-acid battery kind of business. So do you see a lot of import, export, or a lot of trade happening between these two countries in that area as well? Any information about that?
So I think in a way, when I think of technology, for me it's almost a euphemism for innovation and R&D as well. So there is, frankly, in a way, the impact on recycling and how we deal with the environment is actually highlighted in the industrial policy and strategy published in the UK about a year ago. But I think the innovation potential in that area is huge. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's huge opportunities for companies globally, but certainly in the UK and India working together to sort that out. And I do think that whatever the agreement exists after we leave the European Union, what we envisage is a more open trading environment rather than a less open one.
Vikram, can I take a quick attempt at this? Vikram?
Sure.
Yeah. So the other thing I would say, one of the things we are doing internally is we incubate quite a few startups every year in our business. And the plastic as an industry, we're looking at how things like blockchain can track the plastic getting manufactured all the way to plastic getting recycled and reused. So I would say that your industry, first of all, is quite exciting. And secondly, there is an intersection of technology that can make what you're doing far more attractive, not just for the UK clients, but globally acceptable clients as well. So I think, it's a very exciting space from what we are seeing from our side. Just wanted to add that.
Anyone else with any questions? So, all right, first of all, I think this is a wrap-up. Thank you so much for coming in today. I know many of you have actually flown in from the UK and all over the country here in India. I think there are a few takeaways from my side. One, of course, is the fact that UK, which is very heartening to hear from all of you, that continues to be a very attractive market and the second largest market for all of you, which is really good. Two, I think your experience of doing business So it does conform to the ranking. Perhaps I think the ranking looks a little lower now. But the good thing is that you continue to feel that the environment that the UK provides for you to grow is quite conducive, for you and for your employees. And thirdly, I think the last one is that the kind of value that you continue to deliver, because the one thing which is really interesting about your existence in the UK is your ability to coexist. So you have amazing set of different customers that you cater to, and your customer retention is extremely high, as I keep hearing very often. So well done on that, and all the best. And of course, and I no sales pitch from me, but it's also good to hear that we will continue to support you as much as we can, and for as long as we can. And of course, I'm also speaking on behalf of Mark as well. Thank you so much.